Welcome to This Explainer. We're stepping back in time today to unpack a story that literally plays out like a high-stakes cinematic sports documentary. We're talking about the Maracanazo, the day football simply stood still.
Just imagine the scene for a second. A colossal, concrete coliseum practically vibrating with the collective heartbeat of an entire nation. We're about to explore an event that totally transcends sports. A moment where human expectation collided so violently with reality that it birthed a brand new word in our vocabulary. Take a look at this number, 199,854. Honestly, say it out loud to yourself. Nearly 200,000 people packed into a single physical space. To put that into perspective, you're looking at roughly the entire population of Salt Lake City crammed shoulder to shoulder into the towering stands of one stadium. To this day, no joke, this remains the absolute undisputed world record for attendance at a football match. The sheer energy, the literal physical volume of that many human voices roaring in unison is almost impossible for us to even comprehend today. But that brings us to a massive question.
Why was the world so undeniably hungry for this specific moment? Why did nearly 200,000 people feel this absolute desperate need to pack themselves into those concrete stands on that exact day? Why was the global anticipation for this single match at a fever pitch unlike anything the world had ever seen before? Well, to wrap our heads around the immense pressure cooker inside that stadium, we actually got to hit rewind a bit before we look forward.
Okay, let's dive into this. The timeline really tells the whole story here. Notice this massive 12-year gap. The last time the globe had gathered for a World Cup was all the way back in 1938. And then came the devastating, completely horrific shadow of World War II, which forced the outright cancellation of the 1942 tournament. And even after the guns fell silent and the war finally ended, the globe was still in this state of deep economic crisis and grueling post-war reconstruction. International travel was incredibly difficult. Economies were absolutely shattered. So the 1946 games, well, they were canceled too. That is a brutal 12-year drought, more than a decade without the world's most beloved tournament. So when 1950 finally rolled around and Brazil stepped up to host the big return, it wasn't just a sports tournament anymore. The world desperately needed a party, right? It was a global celebration of peace, a return to normalcy, and for the Brazilian people, this massive outpouring of pent-up national pride. They were more than ready to show the world that they were the future.
Now here's a quirky piece of historical trivia that actually cranked the drama up significantly. If you read the official rulebook for the 1950 World Cup, there actually wasn't supposed to be a traditional knockout final match. Instead, they experimented with a final round group format. Why? Because post-war travel logistics for European teams were still a total nightmare, and organizers really wanted to maximize the number of guaranteed matches just to sell tickets. So they created this mini-league of 4 teams playing each other in a round robin. But as fate would have it, the pure math of the tournament meant that the very last scheduled match of that group stage effectively became the ultimate winner-takes-all decider. It was the host nation, the mighty Brazil, squaring off against their fierce South American rivals, Uruguay. And this brilliantly illustrates just how incredibly thick the tension was, because the stakes were completely lopsided. Thanks to points accumulated in earlier group stage matches, Brazil held a massive mathematical advantage. Think about this. All they needed to do to be crowned champions of the world in their own backyard was simply not lose. A draw was entirely sufficient. For Uruguay, the task was absolute. They had to win outright. For the 200,000 Brazilian fans in attendance and the millions and millions listening on radios across the country, victory didn't just feel possible, it felt completely inevitable. In fact, early that morning, local Rio de Janeiro newspapers literally hit the stands with a massive photograph of the Brazilian team, slapping the headline, "These are the world champions," right across the front page. Even the mayor of Rio delivered this passionate, totally premature victory speech, praising the Brazilian players as conquerors before they had even tied their boots. The coronation was already a foregone conclusion. Which brings us right to this exact time and place. July 16th, 1950. The Maracanã Stadium in Rio de Janeiro. The air is intensely thick with smoke, falling confetti, and the absolute deafening, unrelenting roar of a nation just waiting to officially receive its crown. The referee blows the whistle, and the first half of the match plays out with this intense, bruising physicality. Both teams are fighting tooth and nail for every single inch of grass. But surprisingly, the half ends in a 0-0 tie. The Brazilian crowd isn't worried though, not even a little bit. Remember, a tie still wins them the cup. But as the referee blows the whistle to kick off the second half, the narrative of sports history is about to be violently rewritten in real time. Just 2 minutes into the second half, at the 47th minute, Brazil strikes. Friaça finds the back of the net, making it 1-0. The Maracana absolutely explodes. 200,000 people screaming in pure, unadulterated ecstasy. Destiny is officially fulfilled. But then, we hit the 66th minute. Uruguay's Juan Alberto Schiaffino breaks free and equalizes. 1-1. A sudden, nervous energy just ripples through that massive crowd. Brazil is still mathematically winning the cup with the draw, but that invincible armor, it suddenly has a crack. The clock ticks. The tension in the stadium becomes absolutely agonizing. And then, the 79th minute. Uruguay's Alcides Ghiggia finds a tiny, tiny sliver of space on the right side. He streaks the ball. It slips just past the Brazilian goalkeeper's dive. Brazil 1, Uruguay 2.
Consider this incredibly chilling phrase recalled by the players who were standing right there on the pitch. The entire stadium drowned in silence. We talk a lot about crowds going wild, but we rarely talk about the sheer physical weight of a massive crowd going completely, instantly mute. When that second Uruguayan goal went in, it was literally as if someone had violently pulled the plug on an entire city's power grid. Nearly 200,000 fans who just moments ago were ready to storm the streets in jubilant celebration were struck with a collective, horrifying paralysis. The joy didn't just fade, it vanished instantly into this haunting, eerie vacuum. The shock was so profound that exuberant Brazilian radio broadcasters literally went completely speechless on the air for several minutes. They simply couldn't form the words. The silence was so heavy, so profound, it was actually terrifying. And as the final whistle blew, that agonizing silence became a cold, hard, historical reality. Uruguay 2, Brazil 1. Against all conceivable odds, against the weight of an entire host nation, and against newspapers that had literally already crowned their opponents, Uruguay pulled off the ultimate underdog victory, securing their second World Cup title. They didn't just beat a highly skilled team, they completely broke a perceived law of physics in the football world. The devastation for Brazil was absolute. So, the crucial point is an event is incredibly significant when a brand new word is minted just to describe it. This match birthed a completely new term, the Maracanazo. Derived from the name of the stadium, the Maracanã, it roughly translates to the Maracanã blow or the Maracanã disaster. To this day, across global sports, if an overwhelming favorite is defeated on their home turf in a shocking, unbelievable upset, it is casually referred to as a Maracanazo. It became the permanent, shorthand definition for sporting tragedy and miraculous underdog triumph, completely wrapped into one singular moment. Let's pull everything together and look at our key takeaways from this incredible historical explainer. First, Uruguay edged their names into pure immortality, securing their second World Cup against a seemingly invincible foe. Second, and perhaps most vividly, they did it in front of the largest verified crowd in sports history. Nearly 200,000 Brazilian fans, whose absolute certainty of victory was painfully shattered in real time. 200,000 people, completely robbed of a destiny they thought was guaranteed. And finally, the legacy of that sheer emotional whiplash resulted in an event forever crystallized in history as the Maracanazo. It serves as this brilliant reminder that on any given day, no matter what the math, the odds, the newspapers, or the crowd says, the game is still played on the pitch. As we wrap up our explainer today, I really want to leave you with a lingering thought. We are so accustomed to noise in sports, aren't we? The roar of the crowd, the celebrations, the anthems. But true sporting history isn't just written in the loudest moments. Sometimes the most profound impact, the greatest upset the world has ever seen, is measured in the total and utter absence of sound. What does it take to silence 200,000 people at once? It takes a moment so undeniably shocking, it quite literally takes the breath away from a stadium and leaves the rest of the world watching in awe. Until next time, keep exploring the stories behind the silence.